Well, hi there, and welcome to the MPI Global Leadership Training video series, and this is episode Finance. My name is Judy Holler, and I'm thrilled to be the moderator today, and I'm also a very proud board member of the Chicago area chapter. So I can't wait to get started, and I bet you're wondering who these distinguished panelists are with me here today. But before I get to that, I just want to say to you, as a leader, congratulations. You have just made an awesome choice, and really it's one that can change your life and open incredible doors, but really it's all about how you work it, and that's what the four of us are here today to help you with. We're really going to set you up for success so you can go forth and rock finance for your chapters. So let's go ahead and jump in. I do want to introduce the panelists. First and foremost, I've got with me today Mr. Stuart Taylor, who is Chapter Business Manager for MPI. Hi, Stu.
Hey, Judy, how's it going?
Awesome. Everything's great over here. Next up, I've got Miss Stephanie Kennedy, who is Chapter Administrator for the Oregon Chapter. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Judy.
Great. And last but surely not least, we've got Jason Carroll, past president for the Tampa Bay chapter. Tampa Bay. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Judy.
Well, this is great. I can't wait to get started and dig in with you guys a little bit. For you watching this video, I do want to take you through an overview so you know what you can expect in the next 30 minutes or so on this training video. But I first want to say what's so great about these videos is that they're online, which means they're on demand, which means they're available for you 24 hours a day. You can watch them at your leisure. You can pause it if you need to take a break. So just know that it's there for you when you need it. You can share it with your friends. You could pass it on to teammates who want to learn more about the finance area of your chapter for MPI. So I encourage you to take notes. Write down a list of questions, and if you have cues, bring them to your chapter business manager or folks within your chapter to get further clarification. But really, this is for you. Work at your own pace. Pause it if you need to, and just know that there's absolutely no pressure. We're going to be able to come back to this video as much as you need it since it's on demand. So let's walk you through the highlights of what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to highlight the chapter finance department and really review all the responsibilities that go into that. Second, we're going to expand your knowledge, and we're going to really talk about how to be successful in the finance area while you're on the board. And lastly, we're going to talk about the tools and everything that you have at your fingertips and really dig into some of the resources that are available to you. So, Stuart, let's start with you. No better way to jump off the call than to really have you give us an overview of what a successful finance team looks like.
Sure. Well, especially as it relates to finance, it's one of the most important positions in the chapter. It's the lifeblood of the chapter. Finances. We need money to do our programs and to really get things done. So it's really important that, of course, you recognize your budget, you understand how it operates, but more importantly, that you making sure that your board members understand the revenue and expenses that they're all responsible for. Even though you're the part of the finance team, each committee is still responsible for their own specific budgets. So you need to make sure that you're there to question them about those revenues and expenses that are coming into the chapter. To, first of all, make sure that you know what money is going in and out of the chapter, but also, too, that those teams understand how the budget works and how it relates to the overall success of the chapter. Definitely some other things too to really make sure of is avoiding conflicts of interest, making sure that anything that comes through to the chapter, any type of inquiries or things that you get, making sure that there's no conflicts of interest that take place. And really, it's just a really active position that really we need your efforts to really be engaged and to really, again, help people accountable, but also to know that that your position is very important to the operation of the chapter.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stu. So, Jason, I want to kick it over to you. Let's talk about Tampa. What responsibilities does the finance team have? I guess we don't want to talk about Tampa, but having had that experience with your chapter as past president, I'm sure you have some insight here around responsibilities for the finance team.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only was I past president, but I actually did play the role of VP of Finance for a year as well. So I sat in your shoes, and I know exactly kind of how that feels. So there's a few things you need to remember that you're responsible for. One would be your accounting and your banking procedures. They just don't happen. They have to be implemented. People have to adhere to them. How do we submit invoices? Who signs invoices? How does that work for us in our chapter? And really, those should be processes that are played out, that are written out, and that are understood by the entire board. They have to be understood and agreed to by the entire board. Your financial reporting. So you're responsible to take those financial reports that you likely get from either an accountant or your chapter administrator and understand them and look them over, ask questions. Sometimes it's as simple as something wasn't coded in the right place, but you're the person that we're counting on to check that. Get that question answered, make sure the chapter administrator understands, or who's doing your finances understands, make it right, and then report it to the board for discussion. Budgeting. We're in retreat season. Hopefully you're either done your retreat or will be doing your retreat soon. And you're responsible for that chapter budget. We need to be sure that there's a financial map for your chapter that makes sense and is going to set everybody up for success. And you're really responsible to put that in black and white. So be sure everybody's talking about the budgets, what we need, what we don't need, what's going to work, what has worked in the past, and to be sure that you've got a balanced budget at the end of the year, and hopefully a balanced budget that is profitable. I know you're a nonprofit, but you're allowed to profit. Word of the day. Second, tax issues. So, taxes are due every year. It will never come as a surprise to you. It happens at the same time every year, I promise you. But you're likely not going to do your taxes. I was a VP of Finance. I am not a CPA. I should never do taxes, nor do I do my own taxes. So you need someone to do your taxes. But you're really responsible to manage that person, usually in conjunction with your administrator. But they have to be done. You have to submit them to MPI Global, and you have to submit them to Uncle Sam. No exceptions. Fiduciary responsibilities, my favorite. You really are the heart and the pulse of the chapter being fiduciary or being financially responsible to its members. The board as a whole is responsible for the membership's money. You're taking that in and you're taking responsibility. But you're the person that really should be holding everyone accountable. You and your department should be saying, all right, is that the right thing we should be spending money on? Should we be spending $5,000 on gifts for ourselves, to thank ourselves for our board service? Those questions should come up and say, I don't know that is right. You're the pulse for that, and I hope that you take that very seriously. Insurance issues. We all have directors and officers insurance. MPI Global actually has a umbrella account that we all buy into. But you're responsible to work with your chapter business manager to know what's that going to cost for the next year. They bid that out and they pass those costs out to all the chapters evenly, and honestly, we get a really great deal on that. But if you do a big event, if you're going to invest $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 in an event, you may want to have event insurance. And I really would take that upon the VP of Finance to be sure that the finances are covered in case of an emergency, in case of something goes wrong, in case of weather. Take that responsibility. And then reserves and investments. We're going to talk more about that in detail a little bit later in the presentation, but you will manage the reserves, and please have reserves and have lots of it. And investments. I see a lot of chapters, they have a lot of money sitting in a savings account making 0.5% interest a year. So it's okay to take ownership and find an investment professional to work on that with you.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks, Jason. And Stephanie, as chapter administrator, I'd love to hear from you on what is the best way for chapters to control money coming in and out of the chapter.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of it goes into the accounting and banking procedures that we put in place. Definitely, I think the number one thing is to have 2 signatures on every check. I know for the Oregon chapter, we have our President-elect and VP Finance on our checking account, and we have to have 2 signatures on every check or wire that goes out. It's just to double check and make sure that we're not spending money we shouldn't be spending. And if any questions arise, then somebody's going to ask that question. The other thing is that we doing bank reconciliations on a monthly basis. We should have a bank reconciliation form that the VP Finance signs off on, so that they're looking at the bank statements, not just the administrator, but the VP Finance is also looking at that bank statement every month and knows what money is coming in and what money is going out of the chapter's bank account. I know I get our canceled checks, so they can compare that to what they've signed off on, so that there is definitely no one's taking money that shouldn't be taken. We also should do an annual review of all of the chapter's financial reports, take them to a CPA. Jason mentioned taxes. Your CPA can do your taxes and do a full financial audit of all your books so that you know everything's on the right track. There should be a written report back from that CPA or auditor letting you know that your books are good, or if there's questions or changes that need to be made, and make those suggestions to the VP Finance, which then can go to the board and make sure that we are all on track and your finances look good. Your financial report should also go to your chapter business manager so that they know everything looks good for the chapter and the chapter is fiscally responsible. If there are monies that want to be spent that are not in the approved budget at the beginning of the year, that requires a board motion. So if you want to spend $5,000 on gifts to the board, which I would not advise, then you would have to do a motion if it was not part of your original budget. So definitely want to make sure you have that in your minutes so that if anyone questions that, you can go back to it and say, well, the board approved it for these reasons. But definitely that's the best way to control money, is to make sure several eyes see the checks going out, the bank statements, and the financial reports on a monthly basis.
Great. And Stephanie, while we've got you, what are some best practices around accounting?
Make sure, one of the biggest things is making sure you get invoices from all your suppliers, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a venue, whether it's a gift you're getting for your president, that you have an invoice to back every check and check request. We also do some sort of documentation if it's an email from that supplier, but some sort of background information that supports the check that you're writing and the check request that's being made. That way you have that background information to support the check. Check requests with signatures. I know from the Oregon chapter, we require our chairs generally make the request, and then the director signs it, and then the VP signs it. So the whole team knows what money is coming out of their budget. It's also good for them to put down what's left in their budget, so they're constantly looking at their budget and they know what they should be, where they are within their budget. But check requests are very important so that people sign off on them, and it's not just the administrator writing the check for any old reason or the president just signing off on it for any old reason. So check requests are important so everyone knows why the money is coming out of the account. Account codes is another important thing. We have account codes on all of our income and all of our expenses so that it matches up to budget line items, so we can see what line item it's coming out of. And so the account codes, such as if you have income for a monthly meeting, they match the account codes for the expense. So if you have a 410 series, you might have a 420 series in the expense line item. So you can match them up and see how the income is matching to the expenses. It's an easy way to look at your budget. I mentioned before, which I think is probably one of the most important things, is dual signatures on checks. I can't emphasize that enough, just so that two people are signing off on checks and it's being looked at thoroughly on whether that's coming out of the budget correctly, making sure if we had a board motion that it came out correctly. So 2 signatures on the checks is really important.
Good. Totally agree there, Stephanie. And Jason, I'd love to come back to you. How should monthly financials be completed?
Well, they should be done by the 5th business day of the month. And you're going to hear from people, you may hear from people that say, oh my God, I can't get it done by the 5th business day of the month. Stuart, have you ever heard that before?
A couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, so the deal is, I would say 5 business days is 7 weekdays, right? So it's really 7 days to get it done. Stuart accepts them on Mondays. So the point of the matter is that you can't have your finances sitting out there unclosed, because if you have a month that isn't tied up and you move into the next month and you don't have the actual numbers of what came in and came out of your account, you're going to start making decisions without the factual information you need to make accurate decisions. So you're going to say, well, you know what, I think that this much came in and this much came out and our balance sheet should be this. So let's go ahead and pay that check. And in retrospect, you may not have enough money in your checking account to cover it. So you have to be sure that you're holding who's ever doing your books accountable to the 5th business day of the month. And then forecasting, the finances don't happen just one time a month. They're continuously happening. So if you're in the middle of a big program and you're not going to make the money that you think you're going to make on that program, it's okay to reforecast in the middle of the month and pull that team together and say, okay, so we're not bringing in this much money. We're going to have to cut X from expenses in order to make that bottom line number we need to make for this event. And really, in finance, that's your call. You need to be questioning people. You'll see the registrations not coming in, and you'll know, red flag time, we need to have a conversation about this budget. And we're looking to you in the finance role to be the person to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jason, staying on the subject of financial statements and reports, how much should be shared with the board?
Absolutely everything. So the board is responsible for this money. The VP of Finance is not solely responsible. The administrator is not solely responsible. MPI Global is not. It's the board of directors is responsible, and they all need to know that accepting a position and a seat on that board puts them in financial responsibility for that chapter, and they have to own that. So, but they have to have the information to make good decisions. And so at least monthly, they need to see a balance sheet. A balance sheet is how much money we have in our checking account. How much money do we have in our savings account? What is the statement at a glance of our financial picture? And then further than that, they need to see the P&L, the profit and loss statement. They need to see, okay, what's come in and what's come out. And they may have questions or something may be missing. It's another set of eyes, like Stephanie said, to look at that sheet and say, okay, that's right, or wait a minute, there's something missing or something isn't right. And then an income statement, what kind of, you get that from your bank, it's easy. How much money do we put in the bank? We want to know that so we can make decisions. And then normally that's done at a board meeting. It's part of the board packet. You submit that out. The board should have time to review that prior to the board meeting so that they can look it over and come prepared with questions or comments on that. And then it should be given time on the agenda.
Great. Thanks, Jason. And Stephanie, so when should boards start budgeting? Like, when do you start budgeting and how do you really start that process?
They definitely, our board should be starting their budget process right now for next year, well in advance of the end of the year retreat. The budget is really integrated with the business plan that you put together, which is due to Global in June 15th. Is that right, Stuart?
That's what we're trying to attain for, so.
Yeah, so the budget and your business plan are due to Global by June 15th, and your budget is really integrated with your business plan that you're writing. So that should be taking place now that new boards are slated and approved. And definitely, as you're building it, you should start with a zero budget. You shouldn't start with any totals from last year. It should start from zero and build up. Definitely recognize all those cash sponsorships as revenue and understand the impact of the in-kind sponsorships on your budget. They definitely aren't money in your pocket. but they do help your chapter become more successful, and you should recognize the amount of money that you get for in-kind, because it doesn't affect necessarily your chapter budget, but it affects how your chapter runs and what ROI those in-kind sponsorships are giving back to your chapter. You want to make sure that you're not giving away something or getting something for free that's not going to be ROI back to your membership. You also want to create, since you're starting from ground zero right now, create a list of things that you should stop doing. If there's scenarios that haven't worked in the past, if there's something that you lost a lot of money on or that just has not worked over the last 2 or 3 years, you want to make sure that you make a list of those items now and plan that you may not do them or make tweaks to them so that your chapter doesn't run into a lost revenue situation again in the future, or expenses that your chapter may not be able to afford in the future. So definitely you want to be looking at how you can make money for your chapter. You know, we get our rebates from Global, but how else can your chapter make money? Is there fundraising? Is there sponsorships? What expenses are you going to incur on monthly meetings or any other type of conferences or anything that you do with your chapter? So really, I encourage the Oregon chapter to look outside the box and see what we can do. We've looked at partnering with other chapters. We partner with the Washington State chapter. So definitely start at ground zero and work your budget up every year and really integrate it with your business plan.
That's great. And Jason, what are some simple ways or some simple examples you could give of revenue generation?
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie just started talking about it, thinking outside the box, but even inside the box, you know, we've got sponsorship and partnerships. You know, what I say is saving money is making money. Okay, so if you're not spending it, you in a way have just made it, you know, because you didn't have to put it out the door. So if you're looking at your budget, if you're spending something and you think, you know what, maybe we can get that complimentary somewhere, that's not unheard of, and just saving that money in your budget, in my mind, is making you money. Fundraising and special events. You know, many of you have a gala, many of you have a golf tournament or bowling tournament, and those are all great, but think about how old your chapter is. Are you 10 years old? Can you have a 10-year celebration for your chapter and turn that into a fundraiser for you and bring everybody that's ever been on the board and include them and get their registration fee and do all these kinds of things to celebrate your chapter and make it a fundraiser. Your education and networking programs. You know, we're all required to do 6 educational programs, and you don't have to do those at a loss. You know, I tell chapters, you can make money at your educational programs. It's okay. And actually, if you're doing a really good one, there should be a line outside your door, and you should be making money on that program. So don't forget that. Also, auctions and raffles. Those are really popular. I mean, we have the ability in this industry to get some pretty cool auction and raffle items. You know, the Bankers Association of America may not be able to say the same thing. So we've got vacations in our association. We've got hotels and fun things to do. So be sure that you're taking advantage of that and giving those auction donors the kind of visibility that they're looking for. And then old school, old-fashioned Mad Men advertising, but you can make it really cool. You know, there's so many ways to give people a little press on your website and through emails and selling podium time or a table at an event. I mean, you really, as far as you want to go, you can go there. And my advice to you is just try not to get stuck in the thing of we don't do that here. We've never done it before, or we've tried it and it didn't work. You know, I say push that boundary and try it again.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jason. So, Stu, I mean, we're a couple days past tax season right now, so I guess we need to talk a little bit more about taxes. So I'm going to turn to you. What tax form should the new finance leaders be aware of?
Well, we all love paying taxes, hopefully, and hopefully you've had already that big experience this past week. But the information that I'm going to share with you right now is for our U.S. chapters, definitely for our friends in Canada as well as over in Europe. They have their own tax systems, and make sure that you're following those tax laws as it relates to your country. But specifically for the U.S. chapters, you're going to hear a lot about 990, and that's kind of like the opportune word for taxes. But there's 3 different levels of 990s that you need to be aware of. So if you're a small chapter, if you have revenues each year that are less than $50,000 each year, you're going to be looking for a form called 990N. N as in Nancy. And this form is just a very easy, simple online form to complete. It doesn't take too much time to complete, and it's very easy to do so. For those chapters that have more than $50,000 in revenue each year, but they have less than $200,000, and in addition to that, that they have $500,000 or less in assets, then we use a 990 EZ, and so I don't know how easy it is, but that's how the IRS has set up that form. And then the last 990 that you should be aware of, and especially for the larger chapters. So if your chapter is making more than $200,000 each year, and your assets are also more than $500,000. That's just the basic 990 form. And even though it's only the 3 forms, there's still a lot of information on the IRS website to really kind of get into those details. We actually have a resource document. As part of this recording that we're doing, we're including this into a welcome letter that we're sharing with our finance teams. And then with that resource document as well, we have links directly to the IRS website. So if you're not too sure about where to find this information on the IRS website, we'll be giving you these links so that you can do that. And especially with taxes and when they're due, and we making sure that we're doing that on time. November 15th is the first due date for those taxes. So make sure that you have a plan in place of how you're going to contract if you don't have a CPA to make sure to help you through that process so that you can get those taxes in on time.
Awesome. Gotta pay the tax man, whether we like it or not. So, Jason, I'm going to come over to you. What about reserves and investments? How should someone or chapters handle that?
Yeah, we recommend, and I know MPI Global recommends that each chapter have at least 1 year in reserves, and really they're operating reserves. Think of it as, say, an act of God, whatever that could be. Comes into your area, and you can't have one meeting. You can't recruit new members. You are going through something just awful. But you've got contracts with vendors. You want to stay afloat. There's things that you have to pay. So what is that 1 year of reserves look like for you? For me, as a facilitator that comes around, I say just what your operating budget is for a year. Try to have a year of that in the bank just in case you need it, and leave it there as your reserves. But then you have investments, which are outside of your reserves. Although you can invest your reserves, I look at reserves and investments a little differently. And your investments are really what you're doing with your savings. So besides your reserve, you can have savings, and you should have savings. You should be building up a nest egg to maybe do something big to invest in your chapter. But if you put that in just a general savings account, you really are not going to get much of a return on that. So, it may be a wise move to get an investment professional, an investment banker involved in your chapter finances and ask them to look at a low risk portfolio, for your money. And we'd actually really recommend that. And then written policy of how to handle your investments. I think it's really important to say what is a valid reason to withdraw money from an investment account and have that in writing. Because you're not going to be in the VP of Finance or Director of Finance role forever. You are going to move on, and someone may come in and say, hey, we want to spend $30,000 on a celebration party for ourselves. You just never know. You need to have a policy in place to say, no, that's actually not a valid use of our investments. And so have that written out, have that as part of your policies and procedures.
Great. And Stu, I'd love to wrap it up with you and have you talk just a little bit about what resources these folks have available to them in the realm of finance.
Sure. Well, of course, the first resource they have is us as chapter business managers. There's 3 other chapter business managers besides myself. And if you don't know who that CBM is what we like to call ourselves, make sure you're talking to your president or your president-elect just to figure out who that person is. We're a great resource. We get questions pretty much all the time for any type of topic that you could ever think of, because, we don't necessarily have all of the answers, but we definitely know where we can go to get the answers if you have any questions. So, for example, if there's nothing too sure and you want somebody's advice from our global office in Dallas, again, we can contact our accounting department there to give you some feedback if you're having any issues as it relates to finance. So definitely reach out to your CBM. We're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you're successful. And we like those questions, and we like that interaction with you. The Chapter Leader Resources page is a huge resource. If you haven't had an opportunity to go onto the Chapter Leader Resources page, as soon as you finish this video, I recommend you go onto that site immediately. There's some great resources, not just for your position, but just for the overall operation of a board and for you specifically to be successful. And as I mentioned before, that resource document that I've talked about before is actually going to have direct links back into the Chapter Leader Resources page, just specifically for all board members, but also specifically just for finance. So again, take that document, throughout the year, use it as a Bible, and make sure you're going to and get yourself familiar with that resources area. Because as I mentioned, there's a lot of great information there. And again, ask us any questions. If there's something that you don't see there, let us know what that is, and we can definitely contact other chapters. And last but not least, other chapter finances groups, of course, in chapters around you. Stephanie was mentioning that they do a lot with the Washington State chapter. Get to know those chapters that are in your area if you've never contacted them before. Of course, with technology, of course, we have people talking all the time. So we could have the Southern California chapter talking to the Tampa Bay chapter. So get out there and get to know who the other finance people are in the other chapters. And we're a great resource for everybody because we want to make sure that everybody is successful, and we can do that definitely by working together.
Awesome. Way to button it up, Stu. And I have to say, you guys have done such a great job making finance not scary and exciting and comfortable. So another way folks can learn more and meet their fellow chapter leaders is if they're able to also attend the Chapter Business Summit, which is typically in the fall. So be on the lookout for that material and be talking to your leadership. And every chapter sends a certain amount of people, but what a great way to connect with your other finance teammates, because typically there's a good amount of people that attend the Chapter Business Summit. So I just have to say, Jason, Stephanie, Stu, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Really appreciate your time, your knowledge, and your dedication. And Stuart, I'm going to toss it back to you for a final wrap up and to get us out of here. Any last words of advice or anything you'd like to leave us with?
Sure. Well, I always like to say, people laugh at me when I say it, but finance is fun. You have to make it fun. It's an exciting time for our chapters, and we're here to really be successful. And I just want to say a special thanks to Judy for being our interviewer and doing a great job. And I know everybody's going to have a really great year. I think we got some great things happening, with MPI Global coming up. As Judy mentioned, the Chapter Business Summit is coming up September 18th to 20th in Dallas. Really looking forward to that event. And of course, we have WC this summer in Minneapolis that we're really looking forward to. So again, be really confident about your position. Be really excited about it. It's a great time to be a member of MPI. And again, use everybody as a resource. And thanks for taking the time to watch this video today.
Great. Well said, Stu. Thank you for watching the video. And we'll leave it, what we say at the Chicago area chapters, we call it the VP of Finance. So putting literally... Exactly. The fun into finance. So you, the new leader of finance, good luck in your new role, and can't wait to see you this summer at the WEC or the Chapter Business Summit. We'll catch you later. Bye, guys.